What's going on? This is the Convo, Norm, along with Mike. Convo Nation, you've been waiting, and you need to wait no longer. We are in business. The Maple Leafs finally in business after their bye week following the All-Star weekend. Pick up a 3-0 win in Columbus, and then come back and follow that up at Scotiabank Arena with a 2-0 lead, and then they blow the fucking game, losing 4-3. What the hell is that all about, Mike? And Joseph Wall in net for the first time in over a year. You'd think the guys would be excited to rally in front of him, support this dude. They got him a 2-0 lead, and then that was it. Good morning, Mr. A. How are you?
Good morning, Norm. Yes, the combo groupies are assembled to watch Mike have a stroke on air because, I mean, again, and I know people get sick of me going through the mantra, but after they lose the game, Anaheim, San Jose, Montreal, Arizona twice, now Columbus. These are five or six games against the worst five teams record-wise in the NHL, and they won, I believe, one of them. Oh well, two of them. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's obscene. It's inexcusable, and really, I mean, like you said, okay, there's a reason that they're rusty coming off a 9-day break. It's not a perfect situation, but you'd rather take the rest than not get it. And they score one goal in the first two periods against a team that is just looking to give it up. And then they score two goals in the third and they get a shutout. But Samsonov had to make a bunch of saves in that game to get the win.
How do you follow that up with another victory? You score 5 straight bloody goals against this bottom feeder team that just wants to get the hell out of there, and then you go to sleep. Those are precious points, but also this is a precious opportunity for the team to get on the right track as we move towards a trade deadline that's going to be integral for the organization, and then, catapulting itself into the playoffs. This was an opportunity to pick up easy points and get some momentum going. Mike, rinse, wash, repeat. Wow.
Yeah, last night they get up 2-0. Joseph Wall only faces 4 shots in the first period, so they give him sort of a soft landing. Elvis Merzlikins makes a great save early in the second period. That seemed to energize the Blue Jackets, and then they get a goal. But the thing is, it's like, okay, this is an NHL team, even though they have half the roster that probably is AHL caliber. You have to, and I keep saying this, you have to step on their neck and kill them. Right. And this team has absolutely no killer instinct whatsoever. No. I mean, these games are easy. Right. It's not, you expect your opposition to try. Mm-hmm. They always will. There'll be some story about some guy from Chatham, Ontario, with his family in the stands, and he's playing like his hair is on fire. Okay, that's great. But okay, if you're a good team, if you're a top 5 team in the league, you step on their necks and you kill them. Yeah. And this team doesn't do it. And what happened last night? They fell asleep in the second period. Columbus started trying. They got 21 shots in a period, the most of any team in the league this season on the Leafs, the most of any team the Leafs have opposed against Columbus.
I know.
Against a team that is starting to, that has literally almost nothing other than Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine and a couple of good players. It is an embarrassment to this team, but it's an ongoing embarrassment. It keeps happening over and over, and the definition of insanity is things that happen over and over. And this team, against teams that they should destroy, they have absolutely no killer instinct whatsoever. And last night, if you watch that game, Norm, the only guy who was playing with any kind of passion, as usual, is Michael Bunting. Mm-hmm. And Michael Bunting was trying to get Columbus to take a retaliatory penalty, and of course he gets called for a 2-minute minor for mouthing off and doing that. But nobody else on the team is doing that. Nobody else is hitting. It really. If you think that this team, as currently constituted, has a chance to beat Tampa or Boston, I really question your sanity.
This is the Convo, along with Mike. Rasmus Sandin, 3 hits last night, laid out Cole Sillinger. which was nice to see.
Yes.
But that needs to continue, and it needs to permeate throughout the group, and that certainly is the issue. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch a group that fancies itself a contender. All these guys probably think they're contenders. Kyle Dubas has to believe that his team's a contender to win it all. All the minions, all the fucking metric queens, all these guys must think that this Leafs team might be the greatest assembly of NHL's players in the history of fucking anything in the world. So how the hell, after squeaking out, just getting by a 3-0 win in Columbus, to come back after this break, do you score 2 and then just fall asleep in front of a fucking guy who hasn't played in a year, who's battled his ass through injuries, through the AHL, to give himself this opportunity? I'm getting fired up. And you just lay down your swords. You lay down your swords and just throw them to the wolves. Welcome back, Joseph Woll. And this guy's got to be thinking, what kind of shitbox organization am I a part of? I dealt with this shit a year and a bit ago, before all the trials and tribulations and the frustration of making it back. And here I am again, the guy who they should rally around to go, hey, this is a fucking easy game. Let's get in front of this dude. Let's make sure he's supported so he can get his win. And you know what? He could be integral down the line. Instead, it's just go to sleep.
Oh.
And this, so Mike, again, this is why this team is, I know, for as much as people fancy them a contender, is a lot further away from really being seriously considered as a real bona fide team that could win it all, because you go up 2-0, 5 straight goals against a shitty team, and then you just say, we're done. That's the distance right there, Mike. That mindset, that lack of killer instinct that you brought up. It's very frustrating. We shouldn't be this frustrated coming back in off the break, because these should be exciting times.
Well, I just have to say, like, of the 4 goals, I think one of them was really Wall's fault, and that was I think it was Corrali goal.
100%.
But the thing is that, yes, for a good team with a rookie goaltender in there, you expect them to step up. Second of back-to-back. It was the second of back-to-back for them too. So, but I do think, I mean, the encouraging thing is Samsonov is playing well. Does sound that if Matt Murray will probably be back in, I'd say, a week to 2 weeks. Wall's having a great year down with the Marlies. But really he couldn't do anything on Kent Johnson's game winner. I thought it was a high stick. They said that it hit the shaft of the stick below the crossbar, but the Leafs just simply didn't get it done. They tied up the game early in the third period on a 4-on-3, and the goal that Columbus scored was early enough that they should have been able to come back, and they didn't. So, at a certain point, they didn't really play desperate hockey.
What's Columbus playing for? Like, really, what are they playing for? This should have been a gimme.
Well, I mean,
gimme. Again, it's like we can break down every single play. These are just hockey plays. The idea of going up 2-0 on a team that you just shut out in their barn, in your hometown, with a guy who's coming back and making this, a heroic return, who needs to be supported. How do you not pull this game out? But then again, I mean, we've seen it happen before with the Maple Leafs. Just, okay, that's it. It was not even a competitive situation, Mike.
Nothing is a gimme with this team, Norm. Nothing is a gimme. And that's the thing. It's like when you play those teams that I reference and you've lost to every single one of them, either in overtime or shootout or in regulation, something's wrong. And I didn't see Kyle Dubas's, Sheldon Keefe's comments after the game, but what is he supposed to say? Because this isn't a one-off. This is something that happens all the time. And this is a very significant part of the season in terms of the schedule, because they played back-to-back against the 32nd place team in the Blue Jackets. Now they play the next 3 games against Chicago, Montreal, and Chicago. 3 games against teams that are in the bottom 5. There's no guarantee they're going to win all 3. Based on their record, they'll probably lose. They'll probably go 1-1-1. And you've got Tampa Bay breathing down your neck. And maybe home ice advantage in a first round against the Lightning doesn't mean much. But honestly, would you rather play Game 7 in Tampa or Game 7 in Toronto?
OG's Converse, thanks so much for being here. Like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Let your friends know about what we are doing. The podcast, the audio version of what we're doing right here gets uploaded to the favorite podcast platform of your choice over the next 24 to 48 hours. If you're not with us for the live show, welcome aboard. Remember, what we do here, this content lives in infamy, youtube.com/the Leafs Convo. We always have a poll or some sort of interaction going on in the community portion of the platform. We're a small but unified group. We're unified in our love for the Maple Leafs, also interconnected in our frustration with how this team operates, how good it can be, and then how it just falls apart in a moment where nerve has to be tight. That is the thing. We'll get to some comments from the OGs and converts in the chat as we go along here, Mike. But we are pushing towards another trade deadline. Kyle Dubas recently speaking to the media, and I don't know if you were there in the flesh or if you just heard it secondhand, or if you're watching the live stream. I don't know if he emphasized it to the degree where we have to believe it 100%, but it sounds to me anyway that the idea of going all in on a big time rental that may or may not nudge this group forward is maybe not completely out of the question, but it would certainly be a long shot if you were betting on what Kyle Dubas does at the deadline.
Well, okay, and this is the thing that's sort of hilarious. A lot of people right now, and the one guy who seems to be constant, but he's by no means the only one in media that is pumping the tires on the Leafs need to go all in stuff. Is Mike Johnson from TSN. He's a nice guy. I've met him a couple times. And I'm sure some of the
like how he checks out with Mike's character meter. He's
right, but see the thing is, he's like, okay, they need to go all in. They need to trade anything that's not nailed down for like get Meyer, get this guy, get that guy, and I mean it's totally absurd because honestly, like Dubas came out on Thursday and he said, with every single trade discussion that we have, I'm direct quoting here, we are at the point with this franchise where you don't want to necessarily say no to anything. There are some players and some draft capital that we have that are extremely valuable, and it would be hard for us to move on from not just Matthew Nyes, but a whole group of prospects and younger players off our roster. So he's basically saying, okay, we're not trading first round picks and we're not trading Matthew Nyes for rentals. So if they can make deals that don't necessitate trading one of those first round picks, at least not right out. Like I floated the possibility of them making a deal for, say, Ryan O'Reilly that would involve a conditional one, meaning a second round pick that would go up to a first if they advance far enough into the playoffs, which is what a lot of teams are doing right now.
Right.
I think that's realistic. But if you ask me, are they going to go out and trade for Timo Meier, who is an RFA but has a $10 million qualifying offer? I don't think they're doing it. I don't think they're trading a number of prospects, a number of prospects for a guy who they can't re-sign or for a guy who's a rental. That, Kyle Dubas, people are thinking, well, he's going to shoot the bolt and he's going to go all in because he wants to get a contract extension. He's basically saying, that's not in my character. I'm not going to sell out just to win one round. And
roll the dice for him personally. I mean, this isn't Las Vegas. You still have to be methodical.
Right. And the thing is, it's like, I mean, okay, I'm sure he wants to be back in Toronto next year. But if you're talking about his resume going forward, and if it's Toronto, if it's MLSNE, or if it's, TSN Sportsnet, who own most of the team, or if you're talking about another ownership group and you come to him with your resume and it shows you traded a first round pick and Matthew Nyes for Timo Meier, and you didn't win a first round.
Yeah.
And Matthew Nyes goes out and becomes a 25 goal scorer, and Timo Meier leaves for someplace else, and you basically left a a steaming pile of dung in Toronto, it's not going to be beneficial to your resume. So
Well, they did last night, Mike. They did last night, so it would be nothing new.
well, but I mean, I'm talking about at the end of this season. I'm talking about if and when they play, and they will, Tampa Bay. If they
Right.
lose and they've made 2 or 3 deals and they've emptied the coffers,
Mhm.
it doesn't speak highly on Kyle Dubas. So I think he's going to go out and try to make the most impactful move he can before the deadline without giving up a first round pick or Matthew Nyes. Now, whether that's good enough to beat Tampa Bay, well, I watched Tampa Bay yesterday in the afternoon beat Dallas 2-1 in a playoff style game. It was 1-1. Vasilevsky's making big saves, and
Right.
they get a goal late in the third period with like 43 seconds left. I don't see the Leafs winning those type of games, and that's the problem. And now one player or two players at the deadline aren't going to change what is going on with this team. Again, it's more of a situation where it's pervasive within the organization, and that's why I've been somebody who has advocated them changing core elements to this team, but they don't want to do that. So, okay.
Right. I think a lot of the fan base who believe people like you or I are constantly negative. One, that's incorrect. But what they're believing is that um, at some point the Leafs will play enough against a team like Tampa to finally win, but somehow by hook or by crook, you know, all the guys on the Bolts will get influenza and barely be able to put the team together, and the Leafs will somehow finally get this done. The thing is, that may be true. That may be true, but you still have to look at what you've got right now. And again, when I say that, that might be in 50 years. But as of right now, anybody who's honest with themselves cannot say that the way the team is constructed, you would bet on the Maple Leafs beating a team that's beat you before and that continues to play a style that you should aspire to play, and not only to equal, but overcome with more youth and more passion. That's the trouble here, as I believe that the fanboys and the pom-pom wavers, again, we all internally want this team to win, are just believing. They just believe. You've got to believe. You've got to support your team because this is the year. What makes it the year? What makes it the year? What do you see here that we haven't seen in the past that gives you hope that finally we will cross that threshold? Because this is the group. If you're honest with yourself, the answer is nothing.
It's the coin flip philosophy. It's okay.
Right.
It can't come up tails again.
Right.
Sure.
09 Max, Norm, players on bad teams will never throw in the towel. I said that in jest, Max. You know what I'm saying? And Max is a great contributor. I'm reading from the list of real-time comments in the chat.
Yeah, it's not. Last night's game
Right.
was not Columbus. It was Toronto. Toronto up 2-0, needed to score one more goal. And again, I'll use the phrase one more time: step on their neck and kill them. They were ready to lay down. They're down 2-0 in Toronto. If you score another goal, I think the game is over with. They didn't. Merzlikins makes a good save. Columbus gets all energized, and the Leafs let the side down. He's like, okay, now they're energized. Now you're the better team.
I know.
Go out, Austin Matthews. You're the better team. Go out and beat them. But they didn't. And
Whatever happened to winning by just being there, right? It's the NHL, but if you are appreciably better than a team like Columbus who's playing for a draft pick and you have aspirations and you just won and you're up 2-0 in a game, how can you not close that bloody thing out? One more from 09 Max, who's again a great contributor, always adding good stuff to the mix. They can get guys like Barbashev and Shen without getting rid of high picks or their better prospects. Shen's making like $750,000.
yeah.
Dubas says you're not seeing any change to the goaltending situation. They're going to ride with those bros, and then they've got a guy like Wall who, deserves another shot to be supported. And I actually trust that triumvirate or duo or whatever it is by committee between the net, as long as they're healthy. But would a Shen, and it's a lot of people want to get rid of Justin Hall, like, and that's this thing. But Who does Shen supplant, or is he kind of part of that
Well,
carousel?
the problem is, and I agree with the throngs who say that they should get rid of Justin Hall, because Justin Hall.
Justin. I'm tried.
Yeah, he's abominable. I mean, yesterday he on one of the goal, I think it was the Corrali goal, he just was completely out of position, and then just stood around while the puck was in the crease. It just he's just terrible. But Sheldon Keefe loves him because he's big and because he can clear the front of the net. There was one play, not to get off on a Justin Hall tangent, but I will. There was a penalty. It was either late second or early third period where he had the puck behind the net with plenty of time to clear it out of the zone, and he doesn't. And he gives it up. It gets kept in by Columbus, and it stayed in the zone for about 45 seconds. They were lucky that they didn't give up another goal on that one. And that's the problem. Justin Hall, there are certain attributes that he has that are, I think, useful, but the package is a package of crap. And they just signed, and we hadn't mentioned it, but I will. They signed Connor Timmins to a 2-year deal at $1.1 million per, which I think is an excellent deal. He's got some offensive ability. Defensively, he makes a couple of mistakes, but all in all, it's a good contract. That guarantees, in my mind, Justin Hall will not be on this roster next year. Now, maybe it guarantees that Justin Hall might get traded, but they love him as a penalty killer. Right. Big body clearing the front of the net. The problem is he doesn't clear the front of the net very well. So, I mean, that's the problem. I look at them right now, Norm, and Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman did an excellent job last night of going through a number of players that may be on the Leafs as their targets.
Right.
And before the game, Kelly Rudy mentioned that he had spoken, and he's not Pierre LeBrun or Elliot Friedman or somebody, but he has lots of contacts in the league with scouts and other people. And he was told that Gavrikov, who is the name that the Leafs have been mentioned in connection to,
I know that situation. Yeah,
will not sign an extension with a Canadian team. Now, we don't know if that's 100% true or not, but if it is, that scratches Gavrikov off the list, because more than likely Gavrikov will cost any team trading firm a first-round pick, and the Leafs are not going to give up a first-round pick for somebody who is a pure rental. So,
do you think he'd want to play with the Leafs after what he witnessed last night? Not to say that Bobby Orr, but fuck.
He doesn't have – well, please, anything's better than finishing you off your year in Columbus. I mean, I think he'd probably – to sell his wares to a contender at the deadline, or with a contender at the deadline, I think is something that he definitely would want to do. Right. But I think the Leafs are not going to buy in on Gavrikov and trade what would be necessary to get him unless they have some ability of signing him. And it might be another Ilya Lyubushkin type of deal where, he's a good defensive defenseman, physical. And then,
man, he's doesn't cost much, and is the fact that he's too slow. But is that what you're looking for? Just somebody who's been around, who's won a cup, this kind of maybe coming full circle, having started with the Leafs over 15 years ago or whatever it was.
I think that the Leafs on defense are looking for physicality. They're looking for somebody to replace what Muzzin gave them. But the problem is, no matter at the most, you're going to add one guy like that. And is that one guy going to make the difference between winning and losing? It might. Gavrikov's a big guy and he eats minutes, but it's going to come down to Riley and Brody and Giordano playing more minutes than he should, and Sandy and Liljegren. It's going to, and unfortunately, they're going to probably play Justin Hall. So I mean, now up front, I honestly, I would be knocked over with a feather if the Leafs traded for Timo Meier. If the Leafs made an impact move up front. Everybody wants them to add a top six forward. Well, top six forward costs. Yeah. Now they can get somebody, and I'm not saying this guy, but I'm saying somebody like a Max Domi or a James Van Riemsdyk who you can plug in the top six. But I think they need, more than anything, they need a forward with again, physicality. a
Right.
Maxime Comtois, an Ivan Barbashev, an Oscar Sundquist, like one of these guys, a guy who's a middle six forward that allows them to maybe to move Yarncroke down to the third line. I mean, one of the things last night, I mean, even though they had a good game in Columbus, the third line was terrible. Pierre Engvall got benched in the second.
What else is new, Mike?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, the third line was terrible. David Kampf has been not very good for about a quarter of the year. Alex Kerfoot, we know. I mean, he provides certain things, but he doesn't provide enough, and he's
Right.
out of position right now. So right now, the Austin Matthews injury shows how thin the Leafs are up front, where you're playing Kerfoot up the middle, you're playing Joey Anderson, who I think has done a good job on the third line. You called up Alex Steves and guys from the Marlies, and I'm all for giving them a chance because I think it's logical to see if you can promote from within before you go outside of the organization. But right now, there's just not enough there. And if you stop Marner and Nylander and Tavares, who's scoring the goals?
Right. OG's converts, thanks so much for all of your content and your interaction in the chat. There's just a ton of it. I'm going to get to a couple of comments and then we'll get out of here. I just wanted to just add that, we're kind of bouncing around here. It's like, well, we need more physicality on the blue line. Well, it'd be nice to have somebody else augment the top six, but the bottom six leaves a lot to be desired. The fact that it is an offensive support system, and then if it's not supporting offensively, it's helping to shut down games. And so OG's conference helped me figure this out. Mike, are the Leafs further away from really making the impact we all want them to make than we believe? Are they more than just because okay, they pull off a trade for Max Domi. There it is. Cherry on top. Luke Shen comes into support. Cherry on top. They fucking sell the farm for Timo Meyer. Going all the way. Really? That's the thing. Really? Dubas, somebody made a comment here, and he's right. The Dubas, they love their guys. The way this team, the mosaic of this team is set. Is this team, and we're going to kind of hash this out as we go forward. I don't know. Is this team a player or two, a tweak away from going all the way? Is the mentality right? We saw last night there's zero killer instinct. Guys like Justin Hall playing a lot of minutes and still making fuck-ups that don't make sense as an NHLer. Right? We're still talking about a guy who's eating up so many minutes and really is, a big part of the defensive group right now. And we're talking about him like we can't wait to get rid of him. This is systemic, Mike. This goes deeper than adding a player or two. And that's the thing. Then again, maybe the people who are pie in the sky and generally optimistic and believe the time is coming are right in that we're just going to have to keep playing the games. And at some point, by some way, the mighty Maple Leafs will pull through, because that's what you do when you keep on showing an effort. With the of last night for most of the game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Make a point, Mike. I'll go through some comments and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I think that the thing, and I've made this reference before. Somebody in the chat was like they needed to make a DeRozan for Kawhi type of deal. The problem is in the NHL, like, okay, I've been advocating that for 2 years, and who in that example for the Leafs is DeRozan? DeRozan is Nylander,
of course,
because you have to trade something to get something. Now, the problem is Dubas doesn't want to trade Nylander. Nylander's having a great year. But the thing is what I'm concerned with is that the roster is currently constituted is not going to get over on Tampa. And short of Tampa losing Kucherov or Stamkos or Hedman or Vasilevsky right before the playoffs, going into the postseason, going into the playoffs, Tampa Bay will be favored, as they rightly should, because they're the 3-time Eastern Conference finalist, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Right. I've been advocating for years and years on end, not just because of the Leafs, because of other situation, that the league go back to a conference format, because I think it's inherently unfair that that every year you're playing Tampa or Boston. It's ridiculous. But
you can't do anything about it this year, Mike.
But it's up to Toronto. That's what's in front of them. You have to beat them. And I don't know, like, I agree with Dubas. I don't think that this team is a Timo Meyer away from beating Tampa. If they're going to beat Tampa, it's going to be this group beating them. And if honestly, I won't believe it until I see it.
Right. A team that's a Timo Meyer away from going all the way finishes off the Columbus Blue Jackets last night. They don't lose to as many of the bottom feeders as they have.
Agreed.
Right. A young defenseman who's had some speed wobbles and hiccups makes big plays in big moments to show that he is developing. Right. You have a bottom six that shows characteristics of grit and physicality and determination, as opposed to just go out there, guys. Like they jump over the boards and they're going out there. You're a guy. You've got some skill and some speed. Now go out and just plug a hole. This is the thing. Maybe they're further away than we truly believe. Mike, we got to get through some comments and then we can.
Yeah, let me just address one comment from Chris Manos. He's like, Riley would be that DeRozan. Okay. There is a hatred on Morgan Riley right now. Wow. And honestly, I don't get it because their defensive problems aren't on Morgan Riley.
Right.
They're on I mean, last night it was Hall, and I'm sure, Sandy and Lil, you're going to have had their hiccups. Morgan Riley took an under the market deal to stay in Toronto, and he has a no move clause. So put it out of your head. He's not going anywhere, and that's not happening, and they were never going to trade him, and he is probably one of the top 20 defensemen in this league. So please, I mean, my God, it's like, I don't get it. It's like, it's sort of this thing with and people could say this is with me. It's like with
Larry Murphy, Mike, all of a sudden, like how the hell did that happen? And you know what happened with Larry Murphy? He left the Leafs and
yeah, but Larry Murphy. I mean, but Morgan Riley is not Larry Murphy. Larry Murphy was brought in at late in his career on a trade. Morgan Riley has been here since he was 19 years old. He's been they're probably their best defenseman.
Isn't it fucked up? How is the guy who's been with the organization, pledged his career to the organization, taken a commendable contract, amended to fit into the financial parameters of what the Leafs were working with, and now he's Larry Murphy, right? In terms of the vitriol and the hatred towards. So, and that's the thing. Again, Leaf fans are just super passionate, and if you have an issue with this team because you believe it can be better and your heart's into it, I'm totally respectful of that. For me, you don't hear me bring up Morgan Riley because that's the kind of guy who I believe is on board for the run, right? And who I don't have to really worry about. He's not Nick Lidstrom, right? He's not Bob Orr, and never was. But again, to focus in on him and to put the angst of the general frustration with the group towards him, it's just totally misplaced. There's so many other things about this team that need to be rectified before we can really look at it and say, that's our crew standing at the gate. That's the crew that's going to go all the way. If they don't win it, it'd be a shame and something went wrong, but that's the crew. And in my opinion, Morgan Riley would be a part of that crew. Sorry, guys, I've lost my track with the comments because there are so many of them in there. What I would suggest to you is that you go to the YouTube page and start the discussion or continue the discussion there. You can also reach Mike and I through email, through Twitter. You can focus in on Mike's writing efforts at hockeybuzz.com. Like I said, he's certainly one of the best in the business. I'm seeing all kinds of names come up. Chychrun, Bertuzzi, Trudeau, Jesus, Murphy. Everybody's pretty fired up.
Okay, I'll bring up the name and I'll click them off one by one. Bertuzzi, I don't think it's going to happen. Elliot Friedman has documented what might be the big concern with him. First of all, he's been injured 3 times this year, but I think they want that type of player, the physical winger who can play with skill. But the problem with him apparently is because he is not vaccinated, and if he would be playing for a Canadian-based team, there would be issues with him being able to play games. Now, I don't know what it is. Friedman has not specified them, and I'd like to know what exactly it is, but there is some concern because apparently Edmonton is interested in him too, that he would be able to play regularly if he's not vaccinated in Canada. So I don't know the particulars of that, but that's been brought up. So I think the injury thing has more to do with it than anything. He's had 2 broken hands this year and a hamstring injury. He's back now, I believe, but I think they're going to go someplace else. If they're going to trade the assets that would be necessary to trade for Bertuzzi, I think they would probably do the same thing for an O'Reilly, and I think O'Reilly answers a lot of things to check off more than Bertuzzi.
Wow. Anush Patel's in here somewhere. He's made some great comments. I wanted to give him a shout out. Haven't seen him in the chat for quite some time. But he's got some good interaction going with the OGs and converts, Mike. I guess we just have to leave it at this for now. I guess the essence of what we'd be talking about would have differed, would it have in general, but I don't think we would have been as as perceived to be as negative as we're coming across right now. Had the Leafs finished off Columbus, had 1-2 coming out of the bye week, and kind of setting themselves up, picking up the 4 points that are I guess, are they super crucial? Well, yeah, you'd like to have home ice advantage, but at the end of the day, it's really just about setting yourself up going forward. It's just what is numbing is that the same things that we have that the Leafs have shown to be deficiencies reoccur and you wonder, is this a personnel thing? Are these guys to a man just not good enough, or is the philosophy there, the type of guy, the type of player, the way it's set up, the strategy of the team, the philosophy of the team, is that the problem?
I think losses like last night are a dog whistle for the critics of this team. It's like they because it's happened over and over and it doesn't seem to change. Right. But I do think this 2.5 weeks before the deadline, there are serious questions, even though this team has had success in the regular season for 2 straight years, of composition rather than, there's talent there. They have no problem winning games in the regular season. They have no problem beating teams that are playoff teams. They have problems beating the teams that they're going to need to beat in Boston and Tampa, and they have problems beating the teams that are worse in the league. So I don't know if that's going to change. You would hope that adding a couple players down the stretch would change anything, but I don't know. So all we can do is see what Kyle Dubas does in the next 2.5 weeks, and we'll see.
So real quick, before we go, I'll get your prediction on Super Bowl 50,000. And then also to Chicago at Scotiabank Arena Wednesday, Montreal at Toronto on Saturday, and then it's Toronto into Chicago on Sunday. You would here's the thing: if just looking at it, going, oh well, that should be 5 of 6, no problem. Right?
Now I'll predict 1-1-1 right now, and it should be 3-0. And more than likely, Murray won't be back, so that means Joseph Woll probably plays against Chicago at United Center. The one good, encouraging thing is coming out of the break, it sounded like Austin Matthews would be closer to coming back than we thought, that maybe it would happen in a week or so. So they're not going to rush him back, and they shouldn't. Because they're not in danger of falling out of a playoff spot or falling into the wild card.
They can score enough with the 3 guys who score goals on the team.
Right, and Tavares scored twice against Columbus in Columbus. So they have enough offense there. But I think that's the encouraging thing. Once they get Matthews back, then you can move back Kerfoot to the third line. But really, I think more than anything, this team, it would be great if they could add a top 6 forward at the deadline. But the area that's the most concern for me is third and fourth line and depth. You look at Boston, you look at Tampa, and the matchups on the third and fourth line with their third and fourth line, the Leafs lose by a touchdown. And by the way, I think the Philadelphia Eagles will beat Kansas City Chiefs 24-13, so it'll be by more than a touchdown.
Do we want Philadelphia to win anything? That's the thing.
In football, I'm rooting against anybody in the AFC. I hate the Chiefs. Right. I hate the Bengals. I'm a Bills fan. I understand the Eagles, the Eagles are a good team. They've had a really good year. They've had some issues later in the season, but unless this is the thing, I'll just say this, and by no means I encourage anybody to bet because because I look at this game like the game against Tampa Bay at the Super Bowl a few years ago, where Mahomes was limited by his mobility because he had a plantar fasciitis, he had a foot injury. He's limited by the high ankle sprain. He's probably going to be about 80%. And as he played a couple weeks ago against Cincinnati, as the game went on, he had trouble moving around. I think Philadelphia's pass rush is going to beat the crap out of him, but we'll see.
Don't bet on it. Mike is not condoning, any kind of wagering.
Nope. Don't do it.
You heard it from Mike. OG's Converts, thanks so much. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Interact with us during the week, and then you know how it works. Every Sunday morning, somewhere between 9:30 and 10:30, when we get our asses out of bed, we put a show together for you. And you know what, Mike? The good thing about us is we're on a streak. We haven't missed 1 week. We have not missed 1 week. We were sporadic in years past, but we have been focused on putting together content for you. And OG's Converts, thanks so much for being with us, because you propel us the same way we propel you. I'll leave it with this. Can we at least call a detente on Riley? Just for now. I don't think anybody will. There's a group out there that will forever just dislike the guy. If he's hoisting a Stanley Cup at Scotiabank Arena after having a Conn Smythe type, 2 months, I still think people are going to dislike him. The same goes for somebody like William Nylander, who you don't hear us talk about very often right now. But over the next few weeks leading up to the trade deadline, think of it like this. There's two components up front: the top six, the bottom six, and then you have the defense, and then you have the goaltending situation. The goaltenders are what they are. The defense could be augmented. The bottom six certainly needs an injection of a give a fuck and some pedigree and experience and some might and muscle. That, for me, is the thing. Austin Matthews will come back and join the top six, score a bunch of goals, get going. It's really not going to matter. That's the thing. This team doesn't need more goals. It needs to prevent them and be in the trenches and go toe-to-toe with these teams that play with their hair on fire. So there's lots of work to do between now and next week, and then leading up to the deadline, and then beyond. But regardless of what happens, we'll be here for it. Mike, enjoy Super Bowl 57. OG's Converts, you do the same. And we'll talk to you in 7 days' time. We're out.